everyone to the October 17th Select Board meeting. We'll go ahead and start the meeting with the roll call. So Mr. Georgantis, our chairman, is on the phone today. So Pete, if you'd like to start us off.
Here.
Yes.
Kelly Boyer.
Collis Adams.
Jim Craig.
Okay, and we'll go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And first up, we have our DPW Director, Adam Jacobs. Come on up.
Hi, good evening.
Good
Sorry
evening.
to mess up your one-item agenda tonight. Got the bid award that keeps on giving here. So we discussed this one at a couple previous meetings. Unfortunately, after the notice of award went out, we received word from the low bidder, Allegiance Trucking, that they could not maintain the bid price. They needed to add a $1,000 surcharge to the base bid, and also could not guarantee that future surcharges wouldn't be passed through from the manufacturer through the dealer to us between now and when the truck was delivered. Obviously, that's an unfortunate turn of events once bids have opened. We did have a situation earlier in the year, if you might remember our curbside truck. We had awarded that bid knowing there was a potential for a surcharge at some time between now and 2023. But that was as part of the bid documents. They had included that provision, so we kind of went into that eyes wide open. Here now we've got a bid process that's complete. The three bidders are all aware of what each other did, and after the fact now we've got this additional cost. So in my mind, there are three options to proceed. One would be to accept this surcharge now, accept the possibility of a future additional surcharge, and continue with Allegiance Trucking, place the order for the truck. Option two would be to re-advertise, hold another bid process right from the get-go, and that would be, of course, a 2-week usual bid opening plus maybe a week between meetings, and that would preserve the integrity of the bid process completely, I guess. Option three would be to award to the second lowest bidder. I think I put a typo in there. Award to the second low bidder, who we didn't tell them the reason why we were asking, but they did verify that if we wanted to accept their bid now, they could still honor that price from their bid. And further, they said that their manufacturer is no longer passing through additional surcharges, so they could guarantee that that price would hold from now until delivery of the truck. So those I thought were the three ways to go, potentially. As I mentioned, I have a hard time, now that bids are known, putting us in a position where we're allowing the low bidder to close that gap between themselves and the next low bidder. I'm not sure if bids were really tight, if this would be coming up now. If there was, it was almost, it was about $9,000 difference between the low bid and the second low bid. If it was a $1,000 difference, I'm going to guess we wouldn't have received a request to pay an additional $1,000, knowing that it would completely close that gap. So, but there's just no way to know that. I think one of the problems with option two, with a rebid situation, is the low bidder for this current bid has said that they originally, when the time of bids opening, they said they had 30 vehicles next year from the manufacturer. That's since been amended by the manufacturer to now only 16 vehicles for the whole calendar year for this dealer. As of Friday, he told me he's only got 5 left of their whole allotment for 2023. And we're starting to hear this with other manufacturers as well in other areas. So one of the problems with re-advertising is potentially in the course of a couple of weeks, this potential bidder could drop off if those 5 go claimed. So there's a bit of a bird in hand situation where, do we accept a bid now, or do we roll the dice? There is an option, chance, of course, if we rebid, that the final bid price could go up slightly, could go down. Maybe everybody knows each other's bids and pencils will sharpen, but it could be a situation where the bids kind of collapse together towards a different number. I personally, at this point, just where we're starting to see this contraction of vehicle allotments from manufacturers. Ford just put out another one for their F-350s for the model year. They're going to have 3 days when they'll accept new orders from dealers, and after that they're going to close for the whole calendar year 2023. So there's a bit of a risk, and so I think all in all, unfortunately, I think option number 3 would be my recommendation. It's a little more costly currently to the town, but it limits the damage to the upside. There's no potential for the future surcharge on that particular vendor. It fully preserves our bid process, which to me is worth more than $9,000. Just to know that Goffstown's not a place where, we're going to kind of allow low bidders to reopen the bid process after things have been awarded. So that would be my recommendation, but certainly up to the board. But if possible tonight, I'd like a decision to either award to one of the two. I think those are, I'm sorry, option 2 or option 3, just so we can get the process going if we're going to have to rebid.
Adam, did the first, who we awarded it to, I'm sorry, Advantage Trucking Group, did they,
So they're very similar, yeah. Allegiance Trucking
Oh, I'm sorry.
was
Yep.
the low bidder. Advantage Truck Group was the next high.
so did Allegiance give a window for delivery? Do they have an idea of when that might happen?
Let's see. So ATG, the second bidder, gave a Q2 pricing.
Right.
Allegiance originally had given us 180 to 200 days after receipt of a PO or a notice of award, so 6 months to 7 months.
So it's a 200-day window where we would essentially be allowing them to increase the fee that we've already agreed to pay.
Right, yes, correct.
Okay, and what's the total CIP amount that was budgeted?
Let's see, so it was 210,000, I believe. I think that was in an earlier memo. I don't know if I carried that into this one.
Okay, so
I think
we
it was
would be,
210. If you remember the last meeting that we talked about this one right before the vote to award, we were going to draw from the SB 401 funds for the overage,
Right.
since it was an authorized highway maintenance expense.
and that would still align?
That would still be a plan, yeah.
Pete, did you have a question?
Yeah, I got a bunch of questions. First
Okay.
of all,
Yes, sir.
are you ready?
Yes.
Does ATG meet the bed specs of a stainless steel oil pan and an HD frame?
So neither low bid or second low bid, actually all 3 bids, none of them met the bid spec completely. The specific.
Those specific items, I'm asking about
Yes.
those specific items.
So those specific questions, correct. Correct, so yeah, both had a few deviations listed. One of ATG's deviations was, yes, the stainless pan was not met.
Okay, that's a $2,500 option, am I correct? I'm gonna be honest with everybody and tell you where I'm coming from. As you may know, or maybe you don't know, that my brother used to work for Liberty International, who's now Allegiance Trucking. Now, he's long since retired from there, and he's no longer involved, but he called me on it, and the ATG bid didn't meet the same spec that the Alliance Trucking did. And I'd like to remind everybody that our first responsibility is to the taxpayer. Now, if there's a $9,000 difference, there really is not much of an option here. I understand Adam's upset with the steel service charge. I deal with steel service charges every day. It changes on the dime. It's just the way the business is right now. Until our economy changes the way we work, steel service charges are in anything you buy. So with somebody being $9,000 more, and our responsibility to the taxpayers, and we're going to be talking about tax rates and charges in a little bit, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't stick with the Allegiance Trucking. I understand Adam's concern about changing the bid midstream, but Adam, did they send you any letters that showed you that the manufacturer actually changed the bid price?
Oh, yes, they definitely did. They sent the cut sheet. Well, I shouldn't say he definitely did. They showed me the cut sheet with a notification of the price change on it. I didn't see anything from the manufacturer. I believe it. What I told the sales rep at the time, when he notified me of this last week, was, he said, well, if I had told you at the time of bid, I wouldn't have got the bid, that there'd be a potential for surcharge, and I corrected him and
No,
said,
he would have still gotten the bid. He still would have been $8,000 less, or $9,000 less.
right, so that's what I told him. There's a chance, you know, I just didn't want there to be a situation where, you know, people are withholding something that they feel is gonna hinder their chance, and then after it's been awarded, you bring out that.
When was the bid opening?
The 7th of September.
And their letter from the manufacturer was dated when?
Oh, that I do not know. He printed off something for me, it's in your packets, but that was not his notice from the manufacturer, so I don't know that. We, in our, I don't know if I mentioned in the memo, in our bid, standard bid documents, we include a 90-day price hold, and then request, obviously, if anything can't be met, in addition to, you know, normal spec items, timing or anything that we want to know up front.
Okay. So the letter, you said our bid was done on the 9th?
7th, 9/7.
9/7. They got the letter, because they sent it to me, I'm being all confront. They got the letter dated 9/21 from the manufacturer. So it's not something that they were doing that they should be penalized for. I understand what you're saying, Adam, but it's not something that particular dealer did. It's something that happened nationwide. And like I said, I deal with that every single day. When I sell a piece of equipment, I have to call and say, what's today's steel service charge? And I can ask today, but when they deliver it 2 months from now, it could be a different price. So I'm really thinking our responsibilities to the taxpayer. The original bid is still $8,000 less than the second bid that you're recommending. And like I said, you're going to take it out of that fund. That's $8,000 less. We could use that fund for something else. So if you got anybody wants to ask me a question, that's fine. But that's where I stand.
Do we know, Pete, do you happen to know what the fluctuation has been in, I don't know, I don't know how often this changes or what kind of fluctuation there's been in that market. I don't know. Do you happen to know?
Well, yeah, I do. The steel service charges change almost daily depending on which company you're dealing with. I deal with a bunch of large companies that sell lifts, and I have to go in and look and see what the steel service charge is for that day. But that doesn't guarantee that that's what it's going to be 2 months from now when the product's available. And I relay that to my customers. Unfortunately, I think Allegiance got caught off guard on this, and it's $1,000, still saves the taxpayer $8,000 by using that bid. So I don't think changing just for the sake of changing and penalizing the company, which is what almost sounds like what we're trying to do.
Can I ask a question? Pete, what do you think the odds are that, was it 200 days that it's going to be?
Yeah,
This
180 to
is-
200 days.
200 days this is going to be open, that the surcharge could reach 8,000 or more? What do you think?
Very limited, Jim. I haven't seen it go up that kind of a percentage.
Over that period of time?
They say that it might not go up between 1 and 3,000 in the next 200 days, unless we can get this thing straightened out with China and everybody else who does manufactures the steel. We just can't say. I know Adam's saying that the other company guarantees it, and I can understand that. But either I don't think it's fair we go out to rebid it because everybody knows everybody's price now. But that's just the way it works. I mean, that's business right now.
Okay, thanks.
Collis, any questions?
No, I don't, but thanks for those insights, Pete.
Nope, I'm all set.
Adam, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I think we covered everything.
I'd like to make a motion that we continue with the bid to Alliance Trucking, with the base bid plus the $1,000 surcharge, proposed of $108,795, the extended warranty brought the original award to 118,089, so I imagine it's 119,089.
I think that's right. Yep. Allegiance. Is that what you said? Motion by Pete.
I'll do you second?
Good.
Jim seconds. All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Pete?
Yes.
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 All right. Motion passes. Anything else for us, Adam?
Maybe while I've got your ear and this subject is fresh, would you like me to change anything in future bids as far as our language requiring price hold, disclosure of any surcharge possibilities, et cetera?
Well, I get maybe the disclosure, but is that standard across, like, I don't know. What's best practice, I suppose, is what I'm
I
asking.
think we're in kind of a new world. I know that Rick Wilhelmi's been talking to Ford dealers because he has one in CIP next
The
year.
police cruisers.
And right now, they're being told that to get a 2023 Ford next year, which is what is in his budget right now, in CIP, there's a 3-day window coming up here in November. And Ford will
Right.
only accept POs for during that 3-day window for delivery next year.
I think, I mean, disclose possibility, but it doesn't sound, is that kind of standard that they don't have, if it's coming from the manufacturer, like maybe we have them include that if that's a potential? I don't know how we navigate the updates like that if they don't have control over it. Maybe just disclosure, is that, can we hold them to a price? You're giving me eyebrows, what are your thoughts?
I mean, we've got the two vendors here. One says there's no chance of it for this particular truck, and the other says there may be. There's one already, and there might be others. I don't know what the right answer is. My preference would be put it right on the bid form. I just don't know if the board feels our 90 days is too long for a price hold. Should I spell it out? And, you know, I just,
Yeah.
I don't want to normalize the practice of, oh, thanks for your bid price, but guess what, you're paying now. And, you know, like we talked about earlier, if the bid prices are closer together, you know, what does that do down the road if there's a surcharge? Now the vehicle that we end up buying is more expensive than the second bidder, et cetera, et cetera. I just want to make sure the board and I have all the information we're going to need to make that decision, and then we don't have to continue to litigate the decision every couple weeks. I would have been more than happy to, we'd give the notice of award, order this truck and go.
Yeah. No, but I think you bring up a good point. This is happening with almost all of the vehicles that we're trying to deal with in town right now. So I mean, I think that's a good point for us to at least put it right on the form that we're potential for price fluctuation based on, you know, I don't know the phrasing. But. Yeah, Pete?
Yeah, I just want to remind you, we just went through this a couple of weeks ago with cruises, remember? The prices came in more than we anticipated. I mean, this is something that we all have to learn to live with. And Adam, I think we need to, and I used to do this when I did the tire bid for the state. When I bid the tires for the state, their bid pricing came out in September or October, I don't remember which one. But the manufacturer's price increases always came in at the first of the year or the second quarter. And we always used to put in that bid price to the state that this is dependent on the manufacturer not increasing their price. So I think that's what we have to do. So we want to hold the dealer to what they bid, but we can't hold the dealer to what the manufacturer is going to bid. Is that clear what I'm saying?
It is. I think that's a reason why the state started to shift away from those hard pricing. You know, they kind of now say certain discount over, under, I should
Exactly.
say. Right? So it's going to be 10% off the MSRP or 25% off, because it can be a shifting number over time.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. We're seeing it more and more, so I certainly think that's something we can come up with language to clarify just across the board our vehicle bids. So we can work on that. certainly, unless anyone has any objections, but I think that's a
I'm in
good
favor.
No,
idea.
I think that's something we need to look at, in the next few meetings, because we're gonna, go out for bid on stuff after the first of the year or close to it, so.
Yeah.
I think we need to put that in our purchasing policy somehow.
I agree.
Do we need to run that by legal counsel, Derek? Or-
Well, I think maybe with Adam's help, we can see if the state has tackled this issue yet and see if there's any sample language out there.
I just don't wanna start something and dig a hole that we can't get out of, you know?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
why
because the whole idea of the RFP process is to really get at that fair ground between
Correct.
everybody's bidding apples to apples, so, okay. I can put this on, we can put this on for a future meeting after we do a little bit of research.
Great, thank you.
Okay, that's all I have.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
That's enough.
Bring some good news next time.
All right, and old business, we have the. The 2022 tax rate discussion. So I'll just ask first if Derek or Danielle, you have anything you want to add before we?
No, again, just to remind the board, we are in the tax rate queue at this point. We're waiting our turn in line. All the necessary documents have been submitted to DRA. We're just waiting our turn to meet with our DRA advisor. I did send out a spreadsheet to the board last week where you could kind of play with that fund balance to reduce taxes, and it would show you the impact on the tax rate as well as the amount retained and the percentage retained. And the only other thing I'll caution you on this discussion, we are still at the point where we don't have what our meals and rooms disbursement is. That's I guess the wild card that's still out there, because if meals and rooms comes in higher or lower than anticipated, DRA makes that adjustment. That's the last adjustment that they make. And we get that once we get in actual meeting with DRA.
And that adjustment would trickle down to us, and we would have to make our adjustments.
Yes, yep. So we're still kind of talking conceptually at this point, but it helps us get a target. That way we can narrow it down with our discussions with the DRA advisor.
Does anyone have thoughts on the amount or the board setting a target balance? We had talked about that percentage, but where we want our target to be.
Yeah, I'll go.
Sure.
I've been thinking about this, and I'm okay with the target balance and things. What I'm not okay with is, I think with all the increases that people in Goffstown are facing, food, clothing, everything, gas, everything, I think we ought to, and my preference would be to apply the full $1 million to the tax relief. And then, I think this is the kind of thing that we fund when things are good. And to just put money in there to meet some recommended formula is less important than helping our taxpayers in a time like this. I mean, this is the time where we help as much as we can, the taxpayers. And would I rather put it in there and get us up to it this year or next year? Yes, but when I balance those objectives, the taxpayers win for me.
Yeah, I agree with Jim. I think we ought to be sending back every single dollar that we can to the taxpayers,
Yep,
whatever it
likewise,
takes.
likewise.
Pete, do you have comments?
Well, I
Questions?
didn't really hear what Jim said. Did he say $1 million?
Yes.
And how do we eventually get to a lower rate? I'm gonna ask Jim, how do we eventually, we said this last year that we'll do $1 million and start trying to reduce it. So if we use $1 million to offset the tax rate, is it, do you anticipate using any of those funds to, for special projects?
Well, that's gonna be tough, Pete. We talked about that last week too. And maybe we don't, but when I look at the totality of the situation, for people in Goffstown right now, maybe we forego some of the special projects, in favor of keeping the tax rate as low as we can. There's no good answers, to that. There's just not enough pie to go around. But that's the way I'm slicing it, unless you can talk me out of it, but that's, after thinking about it for a week, that's what my conscience says we ought to do here, so. Yeah, you're right, it presents possible problems down the road, I understand that, but, those problems, I think, when things are better and, people aren't getting slammed like they are right now, maybe we have some, options open up and we can, because I think we all want to go to the same place here, but the question is when.
Hollis?
And Kelly, I
So my
don't,
question to you, is, aren't we gambling that something's gonna change in the future?
We're always
Yeah,
gambling.
We're always gambling like
always.
that.
That's an open-ended question.
Well, I'm just saying, if we continue to use the $1 billion, are we gambling and nothing's gonna change it, that things are gonna get better in the future? Versus like, putting something away or using a different amount of money to get other things accomplished, which we have done in the past. As you know, Mark, we've always, had special projects that we've done. How about like the, special reserve fund for the fire department? Are we going to pay for that we're gonna do that now by taxes only? I'm asking Mark that.
No, and I'm just trying to think of an answer, Peter. I don't want to impose that onto the people of Goffstown, as Jim said. We're in a pretty tough situation here, and I don't want to have to put any more money or try to get money to come forth for the people of Goffstown. I mean, we'll have to let the people of Goffstown, the taxpayers, make that decision.
Well, we're not gonna do that right now. What we're doing is we're making a decision tonight whether to take $1 million of unreserved fund balance to offset taxes. So, and then what would we do with other programs? We put them on the ballot to be voted on? I'm asking, I mean, I'm not an advocate for either way. I just wanna know which way we're going, so when we're out there, we figure out what we're doing.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Collis, did you?
these are unprecedented times, and I, on one hand, don't have a problem putting out the message, there will be no special projects this year. That's it, none. We're not gonna do any unless there's an extreme overriding set of circumstances, and that would be a pretty heavy lift, a pretty high bar to meet, but, these are unprecedented times, and I think this is maybe one time we need to stand up and say, sorry, we're not gonna fund any special projects
Well, what
this
do
year.
you consider special projects?
Well-
Collis, one-time projects?
Well, yeah, as we always have in the past. Yeah.
I'm just clarifying.
Yeah,
What
yes.
do you mean by that? I mean, I personally am not comfortable with saying that before hearing the budget presentations and going through that process. Just because I don't know what's on our department's plates this year. And I think sometimes we have had one-time projects that, were important. So I guess we're having to balance that priority, right?
Yeah.
And taking that into account. But to kind of just comment on what both Pete and Jim had said, I agree with both of you. And I've been thinking about this quite a bit. And our ability to give some sense of tax relief while also giving voters the ability to fund some projects or specific funds or very specific things through voting. I think if we can kind of do both of those, because we know we probably will have one or two like we need to do it things, I would like to do that because to Jim's point, I want to help taxpayers and provide relief. However, I don't want that to become the norm of we've offset by $1 million, and then next year we can't do it, and let's say the situation with inflation is even worse and people need it even more. And I just worry that to hit everyone at once would be tough. So I personally am more in favor of a little bit of a balance of, you know, using 750,000 and giving us a little bit of flexibility to use some unassigned funds for special projects if we can. That's kind of where I'm sitting right now. Yeah, go ahead,
If I
Chris.
can, Kelly, and that's why I had the caveat in there, unless they can make the argument that it's necessary, but it should be a high bar
Yeah.
that they have to clear. So I don't want to close the door on it, because sometimes they do serve us well and save us money at times, but, you know, the justification better be pretty damn solid.
Right. And I'd like to see us kind of slowly, you know, expand that tax burden that we're providing this tax relief last year with $1 million. I'd like to see us slowly chip away at reducing that, so that way, you know, if we are in a situation where we can't provide it, it's not hit all at once, but still gives us the flexibility to let voters decide on how we use that money. Versus whether it's, because we're sort of through, I don't know, lack of education or connection with residents, showing that it's actually an offset tax rate. This is not the true tax rate. So I personally would like to balance it and let us have the ability to do both, not making a huge impact in one tax year.
There was a list of,
Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
So I guess it depends on where you're looking at it. From my point of view, and I thought we discussed this last time, that we were going to gradually reduce the amount we were spending to offset taxes last year and the year before.
We did talk.
To try to get away from that. I understand it's a tough time, but it's a tough time both ways. The administration is trying to increase the amount that we hold back, and we, select board members, or some of us, are looking at trying to use that money to reduce taxes. I think that puts us in a real conundrum. We got to decide which way we're going, whether we split the difference or say, okay, here's our target. Each year we're going to drop, we're going to decrease our offset the taxes by $200,000 in order to get to a reasonable amount in our unreserved fund balance or recommended amount, or we just say we're not going to follow that policy and we're going to do something different and hope that we come out of it in the long run. Me personally, I'd like to see it come down. I don't care if it comes down 100,000 or 200,000, as long as we're in the right track and making the right decisions. I'm done.
Thanks, Pete. And then just to go back on that sheet that we were provided with the current percentage retained, if we do update our policy to align with a percentage of between 16 and 18 of a target, we're also fulfilling that necessity by making a reduction. We're kind of trying to do all of the things, in my opinion, by lowering it a little bit so it's not a huge burden on people all at once, while also trying to increase that percentage in our target. So it's, I agree.
Can I ask one question? I want to ask Eric or Danielle.
I thought you were
The
done.
60, huh?
I said, I thought you were done. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at the 60.7% minimum balance. Where does the minimum come from? Is that a minimum suggested balance?
So again, that's the way we read the GFOA's, the Government Finance Officers Association recommendation of 2 months of operating expenditures for what we collect taxes for. So the town, the school, and the county. So that's two months out of 12 is 16.7%. Again, that's the recommendation.
Okay.
may I, we had a list, and I think it was in the last packet of how much we spent on special projects for the last few years.
It's the
It's
last page, actually, I think you've got it there.
I do, but I can't
So the top two lines
Yep.
are showing you, the very first line is the amount used on special projects, the
That's it,
voted
okay,
surplus.
that's
That's
what I
what
was
the
looking for.
voters have specifically authorized for projects.
Yep.
The second line is the fund balance used additionally to reduce taxes. So last year, 350,000 in '21 was used for projects, and then $1 million was used at tax rate setting for a total of 1.35 million used. This year in '22, 865,000 was approved by the voters for very specific projects. So if you used another 750,000, let's say, that would be a grand total of 1.6 million used, 1.615 to be exact. So that would actually be an increase over last year's use.
I see, okay.
And, that impacts the percentages that you see below as far as the current percentage retained. So that would be about a 12% mark if we used another 750 at tax rate setting.
It'd leave you with 12.9%. And then, so right now, if you use zero, fund balance to reduce taxes, you retain 14.3%. You've got an estimated tax rate on the town side of $9.87 for a total of $27. And again, this is that spreadsheet that I had shared with everyone. That 750 drops you down to 12.9%, 944, again, versus 987, so you're saving 43 cents, and it brings the total tax rate down to 26.57. Again, these are before meals and rooms and confirmation with DRA, but conceptually to give you an idea. Last year's, the town tax rate was at $8.30, but again, that was artificially low because you used $1 million last year at tax rate setting.
Is rooms and meals money significant, usually to change the numbers significantly?
It is the wild card. It's a significant revenue for us, but it doesn't generally dramatically change from the number we have. I mean, this year there was some changes. The legislature dropped the meals and rooms rate from 9% to 8.5%. So now the amount that's collected is a little less. So that could impact the share. But the legislature also made a point to do a one-time increase to the share. So it's kind of a moving target. But we're not expecting a very drastic change.
Thank you.
Derek, do you have the spreadsheet up?
Yes, I do.
Could you tell me if we used $500,000, what percentage we would retain? Please.
You'd retain 13.4, and that would,
That's 500,000?
500,000. Your estimated tax rate would be 959 and 26.72, so you're basically saving 28 cents on the town side.
And that was using how much, Kelly? I'm sorry.
500,000, Pete.
500. I think that's a lot to hit at one time, $500,000. I think we should go for 750. Use 250, reduce it by 250, and just keep that in mind for future use. That we want to continue to drop that number.
Can you give us the
Yeah,
numbers
what
for
are the
that?
750 numbers?
12.9% retained.
Yeah.
Your estimated town tax rate is 944, and you're down to 26.57, so you're saving about 43 cents when compared.
I want to make a motion that we use $750,000 for unreserved fund balance to offset the tax rate.
I'll second Peter's motion.
Motion by Pete, second by Mark. Any more discussion on that?
I'm good with that.
And I just want to note that's going to put our percentage at the lowest it's been in a long time. Just throwing that out there. We have an increase to money used. What's the total, sorry, can you, I can do the math real quick. Total money we'd be expending. 865.
So I think that was the number that.
It was 1.16, sorry, 1,615,000. So it's an increase of almost 300,000 from last year.
That's what the 865 has?
Yeah, the
Yes.
865
Yeah.
and a 750.
Yeah, okay.
Any other discussion? No? Okay. Okay, we'll do a vote. Pete?
Yes.
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 Yes,
Yes.
Okay. All right, motion passes. So now let's talk about our target percentage to pass that policy.
So you do have again, I provided the board members in your packet, the recommendation as well as the revised policy. I think Danielle said that she caught a couple of, with the help of a couple of department heads, Adam noticed a couple. There was use of unassigned fund balance versus undesignated, so
Undesignated is the old terminology, so just to clean that up.
there's a couple
Make sure
places.
that we're consistent in using the word unassigned throughout. And then
I think there was a select
the
board.
Board of Selectmen versus
Yep.
Select Board, although that paragraph from an earlier version had been entirely stricken, replaced by the language you see before where it's 1, 2, and 3 on page 3, where it talks about fund balance uses.
So again, this would be your, what are your target balances, what are your minimum balances, and, yeah.
Kelly?
Yeah, Pete?
Yeah, so my thinking is we move towards a balance, but we move towards it. We don't make all the cuts at once. Put it on a scale of, okay, this year we did 750, maybe next year we do 600, then 500, to get to what they're looking for as far as the fund balance. Maybe we don't do it all in 1 or 2 years. Maybe it takes a couple years to get to that point. At the same time, knowing that those numbers are gonna have to go up, the objectives, because the dollar amount's gonna go up, maybe not the percentage, but the dollar amount will go up.
Right.
But I think it's something we can't do all at once, because that's what hurts, trying to do something like this all at once.
Would it be possible for us to put in a note, because, you know, to hold future select boards to that, there's potential conflict in doing that, but can we put that our goal is to reduce that? I mean, I think we've all agreed that that's something that we need to do, but also want to be conscious of the taxpayers and want to make would everyone agree with that statement, that we don't want to lock ourselves into it, but want to make that a goal to reduce it?
yeah, that's what we want to move towards.
I think we need to,
Yeah.
I think we need fluidity here. We need to be able to look at the big picture like we did tonight and make the best decision amongst probably a bunch of poor alternatives. And so we need to we need, this and future board needs to have the ability to react to the current situation. But I think, yeah, with the stated goal that this is where we're going, but we have the ability to get there at our own pace as we see fit.
I agree with Jim.
Yeah, we set those goals and we move towards them,
Mhm.
you know,
Agreed.
graduate
I
effect.
just think it's important to write that down, so when this
Yeah.
comes up next year, we can say
I
we've put it
agree.
into a policy.
Yeah, we should know.
Okay.
Danielle?
I'm just trying
And
to,
it's a goal, not a policy, is that
Right.
correct?
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So right now, the board has a policy that was adopted in 2007 that has a stated minimum of 5% with a target of 8%. That is far below the recommendation that GFOA has made and that we're providing you. And to be honest with you, it varies across communities throughout the state. There are some that go towards 20%. The town of Wyndham has a minimum fund balance of $300,000. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they do it. I don't know what other funds they have at their disposal.
Wyndham, that's 300.
So I guess, does the board want to revisit Danielle's?
Sorry, I have some thoughts too, but
But do you want to revisit that minimum of 5% and a target of 8% in the policy? Because again, right now you're operating under a policy from 2007, and
Yeah.
I guess my question as a resident would be, if you have a policy says you have a target balance of 8%, why right now are you at 12.9%?
Yeah, I
Exactly.
agree. We need to update the minimums, I think.
so my comment, you know,
So, go ahead, would it be advisable to say a minimum of 10%? Just a minimum, not making any ceiling, but saying a minimum of 10%
Go ahead.
with no target.
well, the policy already has a target balance in it, and the way it's worded from your original existing policy is that the town shall work towards maintaining at least X percentage. So built into the existing, which is 8, yes, but even if that were updated, that would give, I think, the future boards as well as the public the clear direction that the goal is to get here. It's going to take us some time. We're not going to get there overnight. Even if you didn't use any fund balance for tax rate setting this year, you still would be going down from last year's percentage simply because that total budget for school, county, and state has also gone up. So, you know, we understand that there's going to be a process moving forward, but we definitely would prefer to have the written goal and the explanation behind it. You know, the minimum is maybe this, but our target is this, and we're working towards that. I mean, the policy is a policy that certainly can be updated each year. It's not something that this board has looked at in 15 years, so there's kind of a lot of catching up to do on that component.
So right now, the numbers are 5 and 8, you said, right?
Yes,
What percentage are we at now?
So again,
with the use
I'll
of.
give you this is all calculated on some unknowns, but 12.9% is what we're calculating.
So what I was gonna suggest is drop the 5, go low 8 and high 10.
I was thinking, Mark, I think that's still too low.
I do
Okay.
too.
So,
I think maybe you're looking at 10 minimum and a 12 as a 13 as a target.
What was your recommended target, 16.8?
The minimum recommended was 16.7, and the target was 18, so that would be above that. I still think that referencing the recommended minimum is important, and then the target really talks about what the intentions are. I mean, perhaps the target is 17 or 16, but I think including that language would be helpful to get us up to date.
I agree.
I just think that's an aggressive goal, all at once. I think, like Mark said, like I said, the 10%, or even if we're just 12.9 now, say 12.5 to 16 is our target eventually, but not next year.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how you strike that, but it's a target. It's not set in stone.
Right.
I think that would be
What
the
I don't
policy.
want to happen is somebody come in next year and say, oh, no, you guys voted for, you wanted 16.9%. I don't want to see that. What we can afford is what our target is.
That was just the recommended for us, Pete.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead, Mark.
so how does the board feel with the low of 12 and the high of 16?
As target, 16
You
is
mean
target.
16 is a
target?
target, yes. And 12 is the low side.
Where we're at now,
Yeah.
a little bit
Is
more.
16 still
Yeah.
too low?
No,
Is that a
just-
motion, Mark?
I'll make it a motion, I'm just trying to, the question I was gonna ask, and Kelly figured, just asked, is 16 too low, or are we closer to the ballpark?
I mean, it's definitely in the ballpark. I think, you know, it's forward momentum. 16.7, I know it's a weird number, but that is the equivalent of 2 months divided by 12 will always be 16.7%. So that was the idea behind it. But I do think 16 is in the right direction. I mean, if rounding up feels better, you could do 17 as a target, but I agree that,
So I'll
you know,
make,
putting a target and a minimum would be.
I'll make that a motion, 12 and 16.
Second,
All right, so that's a motion to update the recommendation or make it a 12% minimum
Yep,
with a goal of 17%. Right?
16,
Sorry, 16%.
yep, 16.
Okay. Motion by Bark, second by Pete. Discussion?
Yeah, so this, as long as the goal language is in there,
Right.
I'm okay with
Page
it.
2.
And the
Because
wording-
there's no penalties if we go below for some reason, or no reward if we go above it. These are just goals
Yeah,
and places, so future boards will say, okay, this is the idea. And as long as that fluidity is there to deal with the person.
And we've doubled the minimum in our policy that
and the
we're going to
wording does say work towards.
Right.
So
Okay, so
keeping that wording.
I just wanna make sure that.
I agree with Jim. It's a goal, it's not something that's cast in stone.
All right, so let's take a vote on that motion. Pete?
Yeah,
Yes,
Yes?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, great. So we'll update that.
Was it 12 and 16?
12 and 16.
yeah.
Do we need any other motions on changes in the policy, or will that suffice to make those updates and include that additional language for explanation?
What I'd prefer to do is make those updates, change all the tables that are in it, and bring this forward to your meeting next week on the 24th, so that you can see a clean copy,
Yeah.
just to make sure
That'd be great.
that we got everything right.
That'd be
Okay.
great.
Anything else regarding this, Danielle, that we need to discuss? Great. And do we have any non-public items?
No, I have
Like
no
that?
non-public items.
Okay. We did action matrix.
I didn't do an action matrix, I tried to,
Okay, it was just on the agenda. Does
Yes.
anyone have any new business or action matrix items to bring up?
I'll ask, how are we making out with the boat ramp? I know they're starting to fill the lake back up, right?
yes, so, for those that have been following the Glen Lake project, Greg's Falls, when it got to the level it's currently at, they were able to make the repairs much earlier than they thought they would have to. So they have stopped draining the lake, and they are now allowing it to refill, but they do have to maintain a certain flow rate downstream. So this is much sooner than we anticipated. So Rick has been in touch with Michi Corp.
Mitchell? Yeah,
Yes.
Mitchell Corp.
They are able to they have 5 of the planks that you approved. They have 5 that are made and ready to go. We would not get any more in time, so what he's gonna do is work with the contractor to come in, pull the planks out, put 5 new in for the worst ones, relay them, make it as, kind of as best as they can,
And then
so.
put larger stone.
Yes, some larger stone
That
down at the
point-
bottom.
Point out, further out to get rid of that scour hole.
Yes, yep, so, that's the plan, Rick's waiting on the permit from DES and hoping to start work, I believe, next week.
Would we, Derek, would you be able to ask him for a recap for us of like final costs, because we approved obviously much more than it would have costed?
Yeah, I
You know,
can-
what the cost is and when that project's complete?
Yes, absolutely.
And I got one final question. If the water raises to the point that it now jeopardizes the project, can we keep the water low to finish the project? Do we have to go through any special permits for that?
Well, you have to maintain minimum base flow.
Yeah, so I know that, Rick did reach out to the operators about that. I know there are other, lakefront property owners that are doing work on theirs as well. So they are tracking that. I guess if it becomes an issue, we will reach out to Greg's Falls about, potentially, but, that's why Rick was moving forward with the project, to kind of do as best as he can, and then you'll see in future CIPs, a significant project down there to do it the right way, in the out years.
I think I saw an email that they're not gonna be up to full until like the end of November.
Yes, yes, yep.
Okay, anything else? We'll open it up for public comments. Anyone here for public comment? No. Okay, any need for a non-public? I think I already answered.
Nope,
Just
we're all
making sure.
set with
Okay,
that.
great.
Pushing adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion by everyone. No, just, motion by Mark, second by Pete. Pete?
Yes.
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 All right.
And while I have you here, just to remind